The desert wind carried the scent of blood and dust. He hadn't meant to find her. Half buried in the sand, pale hair tangled, eyes burning with defiance even as her body trembled. She wasn't human. The shape of her ears told him that much. An elf, far from her people, wounded, afraid. When he reached for her, she recoiled, clutching the torn cloth tighter against her body. Her lips parted, and in a voice both fragile and sharp she whispered, "I'm not clean." The words froze him. Not clean. Disease. Poison? A curse? He could have turned away. He should have. But curiosity and something deeper, something human, anchored his hand. Slowly, he pulled at the fabric. It came free with a rip, sunlight spilling across her skin. And then he saw it, something no human had ever seen, something not meant for mortal eyes. His chest tightened. His heart skipped. This was no ordinary wound. It was a secret, alive and pulsing, written into her very flesh. A truth older than empires, powerful enough to shatter every lie he'd been told. And in that instant, he realized the universe would never be the same again. The wind rolled across the barren valley like a living thing, carrying dust and silence in its breath. The sky stretched wide and merciless, washed in the pale gold of a dying sun. Nothing lived here. No birds, no beasts, no trace of civilization except for the weather-beaten fence that ran half-broken along the road and the hollowed husk of a barn collapsing in on itself. For a long time, the human warrior had thought this place was empty, forgotten, safe. He had been wrong. At first, he mistook her for a shadow against the sand. Something pale, half-buried, moving just enough to catch his eye. Instinct pushed him closer, one hand on the hilt of his weapon, the other brushing the sand from his visor. And then he saw her. She was no ordinary traveler. Her skin gleamed too pale, almost luminous against the dust, streaked with cuts and bruises that looked as though they had been carved by fire and steel both. Long strands of white blonde hair whipped across her face in the wind, masking the sharp angles of her cheekbones and the unnatural length of her ears. An elf. He had heard stories of them all his life, whispers from old soldiers, half-forgotten records in war archives, rumors passed around campfires when the night was long. Elves were not supposed to be here, not on this side of the divide. Their kind kept to the deep forests, or the high places of the stars, far from human settlements. And yet here she was broken, bleeding, and very much real. The warrior froze. Every part of his training screamed at him to keep his distance. The elves were not allies. They had fought humans for centuries, sometimes in open war, sometimes in secret shadows. Saving her would be foolish, dangerous, suicidal. But then she moved. Her hand twitched in the dirt, fingers curling as though grasping for a weapon that wasn't there. Her chest rose in a shallow, uneven breath, and a sound escaped her throat. Not a word, not yet, just the raw effort of survival. Her head turned slightly, and for the first time, their eyes met. He expected hatred. He expected defiance, the cold fire of an enemy caught off guard. What he found instead was fear, not the kind of fear born from weakness, but something deeper, heavier, something she seemed almost ashamed to carry. It startled him more than any blade could have. Crouching down, he kept his weapon close, but lowered his other hand toward her, palm open in a gesture of peace. "Easy," he said, his voice roughened by dust and suspicion. "I'm not here to—" Her lips parted, and the sound that came out was a whisper, carried more by the wind than her strength. "Don't." He frowned, leaning closer. "Don't what?" Her hand tightened on the fabric, draped across her chest, clutching it like armor. Her eyes burned into his, fierce and desperate all at once. The word came again, stronger this time, breaking against the silence like glass. I'm not clean." The words chilled him. They weren't spoken as a warning to him, but as a confession. He heard the shame in them, the terror. Something was wrong. Not just the blood, not just the wounds. Something unseen, something carried in her body that she feared more than death. Every instinct screamed at him to back away, leave her, walk back into the desert, and forget he had ever found her. That was the smart thing to do. That was the safe thing to do. And yet he couldn't. There was something about the way her hand shook as she held the cloth, something about the way her eyes begged him to understand while pleading for him to stay away. It pulled at him, deep in a place he didn't like to admit existed. The place where mercy lived. The place that made humans reckless, that had led them to victories and disasters both. He knelt beside her despite himself. Dust settled around his boots as the wind dropped to a hush, as though the world itself was holding its breath. "Not clean," he repeated, softer now, testing the weight of her words. She turned her face away, as if ashamed to meet his gaze, and clutched the cloth tighter. Her body trembled, not just from weakness, but from the effort of keeping something hidden. The human's hand hovered in the air, inches from her shoulder. He should have left. He knew that. But instead, he said the one thing that would seal his fate. "Let me see." The elf's breath caught. For a moment, she looked as though she might fight him, or beg him again to turn away. But her strength was fading, and her grip loosened just enough for the fabric to shift beneath his hand. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the barn and the fence, and the two figures frozen in that fragile moment. The encounter had begun, and nothing, not for the elf, not for the human, not for the worlds beyond, would ever be the same. The silence stretched between them, thick as the desert heat. The human's hand lingered above her shoulder, fingers trembling with hesitation. He had asked to see. Now the choice lay in the pause, in the fragile space where her refusal could still mean survival, for both of them. But she didn't refuse. Her eyes, sharp and piercing even through the haze of pain, flicked toward him again. For a heartbeat, he thought she might strike him, summon some hidden magic, remind him what a fool he was for kneeling so close to an enemy. Instead, she drew in a breath that sounded ragged, broken, and full of secrets. Her lips parted, and the words came again, clear this time, anchored by fear and truth. "I'm not clean." The phrase hit harder than steel. It wasn't just a warning, it was a confession. Something carried weight inside those words, an ancient heaviness that made the human's chest tighten. He had heard many things whispered in war, curses, oaths, pleas for mercy, but never this. Not from an elf. Not with such raw despair. "What do you mean?" he asked carefully. His voice sounded foreign to his own ears, like it belonged to someone else. Her hand trembled against the cloth. She shook her head once slowly, strands of silver blonde hair spilling across her face. "You don't understand," she whispered. "You can't." He leaned closer, his shadow falling across her frail form. "Then help me. Make me understand." For a long moment, she simply looked at him, studying him as though searching for weakness, or perhaps for mercy. And then, with a quiet, deliberate motion, she loosened her grip on the fabric. The cloth slipped just enough to reveal crimson stains spreading like a blooming flower across pale skin. Not just blood, though there was plenty of that, but something else. Darker veins, running jagged across her flesh, as if fire had been etched into her body. The wounds looked alive, glowing faintly beneath the skin, pulsing with an energy that did not belong to any natural world. The human's breath caught. He had seen burns. He had seen plasma wounds, blade cuts, poison scars. But this was different. "What did this?" he murmured, more to himself than to her. Her lips trembled. "They marked me." "Who?" Her gaze darkened, and for the first time, anger replaced fear in her voice. My own. The words fell like stones into the silence, heavy with betrayal. His mind reeled. The elves were known for their purity, their pride, their ruthless separation from all who were not of their kind. For them to mark one of their own in such a way, it was unthinkable. She clenched her jaw, and fresh tears cut lines through the dirt on her cheeks. I carry it now. The curse, the infection, the proof of my exile. Her voice cracked. If you stay near me, you will carry it too. The human warrior felt the instinct again. Step back, retreat, escape while there was still time. Whatever this curse was, it wasn't meant for him. He wasn't meant to bear her people's punishments. But even as the thought screamed inside his skull, he remained kneeling there, unable to move. Her whisper came again, softer this time, almost breaking under its own weight. You should leave me here. Let the sand take me. It's mercy. He stared at her, caught in the war between logic and something far older than reason. Every lesson of survival urged him to obey her warning. Leave her. Save himself. That was the human way too, when the choice was between life and certain doom. But another voice rose inside him, quieter, deeper. The one that spoke of humanity's other nature, the one that made them reckless, stubborn, unwilling to abandon even strangers. It was the voice that had driven humans to build empires from dust and fire, to stand against gods and legends and claim their place among the stars. No, he said firmly. Her eyes widened. You don't understand. I don't need to. His jaw tightened. You're alive. That's enough. She looked at him in disbelief, as if no one had ever spoken to her like that before. Her lips parted, then closed again, words lost to the moment. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of blood and ozone, a reminder that the world beyond their fragile circle of silence was vast and dangerous. But in that moment, the only thing that mattered was the trembling whisper of an exiled elf and the unshaken resolve of a human who should have walked away. He adjusted his grip on the cloth, his expression hardening. Show me all of it. Her breath caught, fear and hope colliding in her chest. And though her voice shook, she obeyed, pulling the fabric back just enough for the truth to begin unveiling itself. The whisper had become a revelation, and soon it would change everything. To burn away what I was, to remind me what I can never be again. He blinked, struggling to grasp her words. Your people did this to you. Her laughter came, brittle and sharp. My people fear what they cannot control. I learned something forbidden, touched a truth they swore none should ever touch. For that, they broke me. She drew in a trembling breath. And now the truth lives here, in me. The human's heart hammered. Truth, forbidden. He leaned closer, unable to stop himself. What truth? Her gaze snapped back to him, fierce and fragile all at once. That humanity is not what they believe. The words struck harder than the sight of her scar. He reeled back, confusion breaking across his face. Humanity? What do we have to do with this? Her lips curled, bitter and trembling. Everything. Your kind are different, unpredictable, dangerous. Not because of your strength or numbers, but because you are not bound by the rules the rest of us must obey. The elves thought themselves eternal, untouchable. But in the humans, they saw something raw, something wild, and it terrified them. He shook his head, unable to accept it. That makes no sense. Doesn't it? Her voice rose, ragged with emotion. Why do you think they tried so hard to keep your kind apart from us? Why do you think they hide knowledge, lock away history, bury the past in lies? Because the truth is simple. Your kind was not meant to kneel. Her words sank into him like hooks, tugging at something buried deep. Memories of battles fought against impossible odds. Victories won not by skill, but by sheer refusal to surrender. the way humans always pushed forward no matter the cost. He had thought it stubbornness, madness, but if what she said was true, the symbols across her skin pulsed brighter, as though responding to the thought. His breath hitched, and he reached out before he realized what he was doing, his fingertips hovering over the strange, glowing lines. She flinched. "Don't." But he couldn't stop himself. The pull was too strong. His hand lowered, brushing against the mark. The world shifted. For an instant, he wasn't in the desert. He wasn't kneeling in the dust beside a dying elf. He was falling through darkness, stars rushing past him, galaxies spiraling into his vision. Voices whispered, thousands, millions, echoing with words he didn't understand, yet somehow knew were meant for him. A single phrase repeated again and again, resonating through his bones. "They will fear you." With a gasp, he tore his hand away, collapsing back onto the sand. His chest heaved, his vision swimming. The elf stared at him, horror in her eyes. "You touched it." He nodded, breathless. What is it?" Her lips quivered. "The seed of the first fire. The oldest power. It cannot be destroyed, only passed on. My people swore to guard it, to keep it from your kind. But I failed." The human swallowed hard, his heart still racing from the vision. "Why?" Tears welled in her eyes, her voice breaking. "Because I believed the stories were wrong. I believed humans were meant to have it." Silence fell heavy between them. The desert stretched out, endless and empty, but he knew now it wasn't empty at all. The universe had shifted. The revelation was no longer hers alone. It was his, and it was only the beginning. The silence after her words was unbearable. The human's heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing like the hammer of a forge. He stared at her. This elf who should have been his enemy, this broken figure branded with power no mortal should carry, and he realized he had reached a precipice. One step forward would change everything. One step back, and he could pretend none of this had ever happened. The desert seemed to lean in, listening. The dying sun spilled red light across the sand, painting her trembling body in hues of blood and fire. Her eyes shimmered with both fear and defiance, as if daring him to make the wrong decision. "You've seen it now," she whispered. "You understand what I carry. This seed is not meant for you. It will consume you, twist you, burn away everything human. Leave me. Walk away while you still can." Her voice shook, but her words cut sharp as any blade. The human said nothing at first. He looked at his own hand, the one that had touched the mark, still tingling with a phantom heat. He remembered the voices, the stars, the weight of those whispered words. "They will fear you." A sane man would have left. A wise man would have buried the memory and walked into the horizon, never looking back. But he was human, and humans were not always sane and rarely wise. "You want me to walk away," he said slowly, "because you think this thing will destroy me." Her lips tightened. "I don't think. I know. My people swore it into legend. They carved it into me, because even they feared what it could do if it touched your kind. That's why I told you. I'm not clean. To save you." He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping him. "Save me? Or save yourself the guilt?" Her eyes widened, her face paling. "You could have ended it yourself," he continued, voice harsh. "You could have let the desert take you. But you didn't. You clung to life. You whispered your warning. But you didn't push me away. Part of you wanted me to see. Part of you wanted me to know." Tears welled in her eyes, catching the last of the sunlight. "Because I couldn't carry it alone anymore." The human fell silent. The admission struck deep. She was not a monster, not an enemy soldier bound by orders. She was someone broken, scarred by her own people, cast out because she had touched something forbidden. And now, by chance or fate, she had crossed his path. He thought of his own people, of soldiers who had bled beside him, of commanders who sent them to die in wars they didn't understand, of cities struggling under the weight of survival. He thought of humanity itself, reckless, defiant, endlessly reaching for more, even when it destroyed them. Maybe she was right. Maybe humans weren't meant to kneel. Maybe that was why she had hoped he would be the one to see. He clenched his jaw. "I won't leave you." The elf shook her head violently, panic in her eyes. "You don't understand what you're saying. If you stay, if you take this burden, it will mark you as it marked me. You'll never be free of it. You'll never be clean." He leaned closer, his voice steady now, unwavering. "Then so be it." She stared at him, stunned, as if she had never considered the possibility that anyone would willingly share her curse. The desert wind rose, tugging at the cloth still draped around her, whipping sand across their faces. In that moment, he felt the weight of the choice pressing down on him. Not just a decision for himself, but for all of humanity. To walk away would preserve the illusion of safety. To stay would mean carrying a truth that could ignite wars or reshape the stars themselves. But he was human, and humans had never built their empires on safety. "I choose to stand with you," he said. The elf's breath hitched. A sob escaped her throat, raw and unguarded. For the first time, her hands released the cloth entirely, her fragile form trembling as if she had been carrying the weight of centuries. "You're a fool," she whispered. "Maybe," he answered, "but I'm your fool now." The words hung in the air like a vow, binding them together. And somewhere, deep within the marks on her skin, the symbols flared, brighter than before. The lines pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, as though the seed itself had heard his choice and answered in kind. The elf closed her eyes, tears slipping down her face. "Then you've doomed us both. Or saved us," he said softly. The choice had been made. The path forward was no longer hers alone to walk, and for the first time since exile, she was not alone. The world seemed to shift the moment his words left his lips. "I choose to stand with you." It was not only a vow spoken into the air. It was as if the desert itself had heard him. The wind rose suddenly, howling through the broken barn and rattling the splintered fence. Sand swirled into spirals around them, forming a storm without clouds. The marks on her skin blazed brighter, each symbol igniting like a star until her entire body glowed with an unearthly radiance. The human shielded his eyes, yet he did not move away. He had made his choice. The elf cried out, her body arching as though fire burned through her veins. The patterns across her skin writhed, no longer steady but alive, twisting and shifting in wild constellations. He reached for her, gripping her shoulders, holding her upright against the force threatening to consume her. Her scream echoed across the valley, carried for miles until it sounded less like pain and more like release. Then, as suddenly as it began, the light dimmed. She collapsed forward, trembling, her head falling against his chest. The storm of sand fell quiet, the desert returning to its stillness. But something had changed. The human looked down at her, and in the reflection of her eyes he saw it. The same glowing lines now burned faintly across his own skin, snaking from his wrist toward his heart. They pulsed in rhythm with the seed inside her, as if a bridge had been forged between them. He inhaled sharply. "It's in me." She nodded weakly, her voice little more than a whisper. "It chose you." The words sent a shiver through him. He remembered the vision, the stars, the voices, the message echoing in his bones. "They will fear you." At the time it had felt like a warning. Now it felt like prophecy. "What does it mean?" he asked. Her lips trembled. "It means the seed will not let you hide. My exile was proof of that." The elves knew if humanity touched it, the balance of the galaxy would break. And now it has. He looked out at the horizon, where the sun bled into shadow. The world seemed different, sharper. as if the seed had peeled back a layer of illusion he hadn't known existed. He could feel the weight of distant eyes, the watchfulness of something vast and ancient, stirred awake by his choice. "They'll come for us," she said suddenly, her voice stronger now, edged with dread. "My people, others too. Once they sense the seed's awakening, they will hunt it, and us, until nothing remains." He tightened his grip on her shoulder. "Then let them come." She blinked, startled. "You don't understand. Armies will march. Worlds will burn. The seed isn't a weapon. It's a torch in the dark. Whoever holds it becomes a beacon. And a target." His lips curved into something between a smile and a grimace. "Good. If they're coming, then humanity finally has something worth making them fear." For a moment, silence stretched between them again, but it was no longer heavy with despair. It was alive, sparking with the fire of defiance. She searched his face, and in his eyes she saw not recklessness, but conviction, a strength unlike anything she had known among her people. "You're mad," she said softly. "Probably," he answered, "but maybe madness is what your people feared most about us." She let out a shaky laugh, the sound broken but real, the first flicker of hope she had felt since exile. Slowly, she pushed herself upright, leaning on him for balance. Together, they looked out across the endless desert. The horizon no longer seemed empty. It was a battlefield waiting to happen, a future waiting to be written. The seed pulsed within them, not as a curse, but as a bond. Two exiles, one by choice, one by force, standing together at the edge of history. The human tightened his fist, feeling the strange power thrum through his veins. "If the galaxy wants to fear us," he said, "let them. We'll give them a reason." The elf's gaze softened, and for the first time, her whisper carried no despair. "Then perhaps you will save us after all." The sun slipped below the horizon, the first stars winking into existence overhead. They were no longer two strangers in a desert. They were the beginning of something greater, something forbidden, unstoppable, and entirely human. The aftermath of choice was not silence. It was the sound of a story beginning.